For centuries, fragments of the Hermetic teachings have drifted through human history like messages in bottles, whispered in temples, hidden in cathedrals, and dismissed in laboratories. They speak of 7 laws, not of faith, but of function, a set of invisible mechanisms that govern the very formation of reality. Most dismissed them as mysticism, but the deeper truth is this: these laws were never about belief. They were about engineering. Every age that has glimpsed this knowledge has either worshipped it, feared it, or weaponized it. Empires have risen on its partial understanding. Religions have built dogmas around its metaphors. Scientists have rediscovered it under new names: quantum potential, holographic fields, observer effect. Yet beneath all these languages, one message resounds: reality is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you. The first Hermetic principle states, the all is mind, the universe is mental. At first glance, this sounds poetic, a comforting idea that the cosmos somehow thinks. But that's not what it means. It means that consciousness is not a passenger inside the universe. Consciousness is the architect. Matter does not produce awareness. Awareness produces matter. The universe unfolds like a thought inside a vast cosmic intelligence, and within that intelligence, you are a fragment that can also think worlds into being. Every thought is a vibration, every emotion a frequency, and every sustained frequency an instruction broadcast to the quantum field. Your mind is a transmitter that never stops transmitting. It projects signals of fear or faith, doubt or direction, and the field obeys. What you call coincidence is the echo of what you repeatedly imagine. Think about the implications. When you close your eyes and visualize something so vividly that you can feel it, your brain begins sculpting reality before you even move a muscle. Neuroscience confirms this. Mental rehearsal fires the same neural pathways as real experience. But Hermetic science went further. It claimed that sustained imagination doesn't just alter the brain, it alters probability itself. That's why the ancients guarded this knowledge like nuclear code. A mind trained in these principles can influence not only its own life, but the field that we all share. Used wisely, it awakens creation. Used recklessly, it manipulates masses. Every era has had its keepers: philosophers, priests, monarchs, intelligence agencies, all using fragments of these laws to steer collective belief. The second law, correspondence, tells us that everything repeats itself across scales. The same geometry that shapes an atom shapes a galaxy. The same emotional pattern that shapes a family shapes a nation. This is not metaphor, it is design. When the ancients said, "As above, so below," they meant the code repeats endlessly. What you think becomes what you see. What you see becomes what you think. The world is a mirror that cannot help but imitate its observer. Look closely at your surroundings, the order of your room, the tone of your conversations, the stories you tell about yourself. These are not random conditions, they are reflections. If your environment feels chaotic, that chaos began in an unexamined corner of your mind. If your world feels harmonious, it is because your thoughts have achieved alignment. Change the mirror and the image shifts, but change the light source and the entire scene transforms. You are that light source. The third law, vibration, introduces movement into creation. Nothing rests. From galaxies to your heartbeat, from your breath to your beliefs, everything is motion. Even stillness vibrates, only at slower frequencies. The difference between a stone and a sunbeam is not matter, its rate of vibration. Raise the rate and density dissolves into energy. Lower it and energy crystallizes into form. Every human being carries a signature vibration, a composite frequency born of thought, emotion, and intention. That frequency decides which realities you can perceive and participate in. When people say raise your vibration, they're not being mystical, they're being precise. They mean refine the emotional frequency you broadcast until it resonates with higher probability patterns, peace, clarity, abundance. The higher the coherence, the greater the influence over reality's fabric. But vibration has another implication. You can't pretend your way to a higher state. You can't chant positivity over a field of unresolved trauma and expect harmony. Frequencies interfere, not obey slogans. The work is not to fake a frequency, but to tune yourself until truth itself feels like home. The fourth principle, polarity, exposes a secret hidden in plain sight. Opposites are illusions. Hot and cold, joy and sorrow, success and failure, each is a degree of the same thing. No point exists where one ends and the other begins. This is why fighting darkness strengthens it. In pushing against one pole, you confirm its reality. The only way to transform a state is to slide along its continuum. Fear becomes courage when you move toward action. Hatred becomes compassion when you move toward understanding. The law is neutral, the spectrum is yours to navigate. In this way, the Hermetic path is not about crushing weakness, but about learning transmutation, the art of sliding consciousness from one end of a polarity to another. The alchemist didn't turn lead into gold in a furnace. He turned fear into wisdom within himself. The furnace was his mind. The fifth law, rhythm, teaches that everything flows in cycles, the breath of creation itself. The pendulum swings, and no force can stop it. Every ascent will be followed by a descent, every summer by a winter, every expansion by a contraction. What matters is not to avoid the swing, but to surf it. To ride the curve of life without losing balance. When you are high, remain humble. When you are low, remain patient. The rhythm will reverse because it must. The wise adapt, the unconscious resist. And resistance to rhythm is the birthplace of suffering. Causality, the sixth law, dispels the last illusion, chance. Nothing happens without a cause. The word luck is a placeholder for unseen chains of cause and effect. Everything you experience is an echo of some previous vibration, some cause once set in motion. The untrained mind looks at chaos and calls it random. The awakened mind looks at chaos and sees the pattern it has not yet understood. This realization can feel crushing or liberating. Crushing, if you see yourself as victim of past causes. Liberating, if you realize you can begin a new causal chain now. Every thought, every action, every decision is a seed in the soil of time. And time, being fertile, never fails to bear fruit. Sow carelessly, and weeds will grow. Sow consciously, and your life will turn into architecture. The seventh principle, gender, is the key that activates all others. Every creative act is a marriage between two polar forces, the projective and the receptive, the seed and the womb, the idea and the form. Within you exist both. A masculine current that conceives and a feminine current that nurtures. When you balance them, thought becomes creation. When you divide them, life collapses into confusion. Most people, without realizing, live in imbalance. They either imagine without acting, the dreamers, or act without vision, the busy. But creation requires union. The idea must be planted in silence, gestated in patience, then born through consistent action. This is not symbolism. This is physics applied to consciousness. Now imagine what happens when an entire civilization forgets these laws. When its minds are bombarded with fear instead of vision, competition instead of unity, distraction instead of contemplation. The collective vibration drops. Correspondence ensures that outer systems mirror inner confusion, governments mirror fear, economies mirror greed, and art mirrors emptiness. What we call social decay is simply Hermetic law expressing itself through imbalance. The guardians of control have always understood this. To rule minds, one must hijack the feminine aspect of the collective, its receptivity. Plant fear and the people will gestate panic. Plant scarcity and they will birth dependence. It is the oldest psychological technology in existence. Modern advertising, politics, and media are not random inventions. They are applications of Hermetic mechanics without the ethics, but the pendulum is swinging. Information, once imprisoned in mystery schools and lodges, now spills freely through networks of light and code. Humanity stands at a threshold, to remain hypnotized by external programming or to reclaim authorship of its mind. To reclaim authorship means learning again how to think consciously, not just what to think, but how thought itself shapes the world. Every time you meditate, visualize, or speak with conviction, you are programming the matrix. Every time you despair, you are surrendering that power to someone else's program. The ancient masters didn't preach belief, they taught technique. To apply mentalism, still your mind until your own voice becomes audible. To apply correspondence, study patterns in nature and see your reflection there. To apply vibration, learn emotional regulation. Your mood is your frequency. To apply polarity, practice transmutation, see unity where others see duality. To apply rhythm, move with the seasons of your own life instead of fighting them. To apply causality, become deliberate in thought and deed. And to apply gender, honor both your creative will and your receptive intuition equally. This is not esoteric entertainment, it is consciousness engineering. Imagine applying these principles not only to your personal life, but to civilization itself. Imagine governments that understood rhythm, planning for rest as much as for expansion. Economies that respected correspondence, recognizing that hoarding wealth at the top drains vitality from the whole. Education that honored mentalism, teaching children that imagination is not escapism, but architecture. Such a world would look nothing like ours, and yet it is possible. It only requires a sufficient number of minds vibrating at that higher coherence. Every spiritual tradition hinted at this. The Buddha said, "We are what we think." Christ said, "As you believe, so shall it be done." Quantum physics says, "The observer collapses probability." 3 languages, 1 law. So what does mastery look like? It's not wealth or mystical visions. It's inner stability, the ability to remain centered while the world swings. The quiet confidence that your reality obeys your consciousness because it always has. When you live this way, anxiety dissolves, not because you ignore problems, but because you understand their mechanics. You begin to see the world as a dynamic feedback system. Every event, pleasant or painful, arrives as information, a reflection of some internal parameter. Change the parameter and the reflection shifts. That is the real secret. Not attracting shiny objects, but achieving synchronization between inner coherence and outer manifestation. Humanity's next evolution is not physical, it's mental. The new species will not have wings or extra DNA strands. It will have awareness, awareness that thought and matter are 2 expressions of one continuum. That continuum is consciousness itself. And when enough individuals realize this, civilization will outgrow the need for control, for manipulation, for fear. Because conscious creators cannot be enslaved. They understand that reality is participatory, not imposed. So let's return to the question that started this: why was Hermetic knowledge hidden? Because the moment you know how the mind truly works, no institution can define your limits. You become ungovernable, not in rebellion, but in sovereignty. You stop being a pawn in someone else's polarity and begin generating your own rhythm. You stop reacting to causes and start creating them. You stop seeking external gods and awaken the creative intelligence that has always lived within you. That is what the ancient initiates meant when they said, "The all is mind." The universe is mental. You are not inside the universe. The universe is inside you. So the next time you close your eyes and imagine a future, understand that you are not daydreaming. You are architecting probabilities. Every image is a blueprint. Every emotion, a brushstroke on the canvas of existence. The field listens, the field responds, and somewhere in the vast intelligence that birthed galaxies, a whisper echoes back, As above, so below. As within, so without. The code has always been yours.